Denver. Kendrick Williams tonight. The Oklahoma City Thunder, their first conference finals game since 2016, wins handily as Anthony Edwards and the T-Wolves will regroup.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the All Things Basketball Podcast. Gonna go through Game 1 thoughts. I've got several notes here taken out of both teams. I took the time to open up the box score as well so that I can also go through that. I do have some specific data that I wanted to get into, like points in the paint, points off turnovers, matchup stuff, right? And gonna be giving out some shout outs and also some call outs, right? Like, where are some of these guys? Let's get right into it. So, first of all, awesome showing. Game 1, the Thunder not messing around, right? Minnesota Timberwolves really get an incredible Julius Randle game. I mean, I just did a Julius Randle pod earlier, and this guy just shot the lights out in the first half. He shows up in the second half, and, you know, basically he gave you everything he could. At that point, it's really on everyone else to just do their job, right? And I'll get into that as well. Let's talk about just some things that stood out to me, right? Like some eye-popping stuff that if you haven't heard it, well, you're going to hear it right here. So, points in the paint for the Timberwolves in the first half. They scored 4 points. And I talked about this earlier. OKC just being a great collective collapsing team that forces you to just take perimeter shots if you're not mentally strong enough and if you're not capable of scoring inside, right? And obviously the Timberwolves, definitely a team that's capable of doing that. I fully expect them to make an adjustment. Chris Finch, I'm sure he's going to address that. But after that first half, I'm thinking, okay, the Thunder are down 4, and all that's been going on are perimeter shots from the Timberwolves. So if I was the Thunder in that locker room, I'm thinking, all right, well, if they're not going to get their points in the paint and they're going to rely on scoring on the perimeter, and hopefully, if they're going to rely on Randle to stay hot like this, then I think we're in a good place, right? Especially because the Thunder weren't necessarily playing great either. Like, I think Shea was like 2 for 13. I don't remember what the shooting was for Jalen Williams either. Like, these guys, they were having a rough offensive night in the first half. And defensively, obviously, that's what was keeping the Thunder in the game. No surprise to that. And second half for the Timberwolves, they kind of pick up a little bit of that paint scoring, but, still 16 points. Right? And we talk about the first half real quick with OKC and points of the paint, and that was 22 points. So, OKC, we're not going to just succumb to just taking a bunch of threes. We're going to do what we do best. We're going to put the ball down. We're going to challenge that first defender on the ball, and we're going to see if we can, grab help, right? If help's going to show, we're either going to make the kick out or we're going to just put the ball down and get all the way to the rim. Hopefully get foul calls, which a lot of people are hating Shea for some of those calls. And look, man, just like the all-time greats, Shea gets calls that maybe shouldn't be called. That happens. Let's not act like the majority of the fouls he gets aren't actual fouls. He's getting fouled. A lot of guys that are just historically just habitual drivers of the basketball, right? Like, Shea is one of the league leaders in driving. Right? And when you do that and you're playing in the mid-range and you have great footwork and you have a good ball handle and you have that elite stop and go, just the ability to decelerate on your way to the rim and kind of play with defenders and change direction, and you're using pump fakes, you're playing off 2 feet, you just become incredibly hard to guard. And this isn't some Shea glazing pod that I'm trying to do, but at the same time, he's not the first to take advantage of poor defense, right? Like, just some lackadaisical things that some defenders will do. Like, they'll keep their hand near his dribble, which they should know 9 times out of 10. If you're not going to pull away, James Harden was, one of those guys that really showed what happens when you don't do that. And, Shea's no different in the sense of his elite ability to just be crafty and know how to draw fouls in different angles. But, I didn't want to spend too much time on that because that's really not what this pod is about. Obviously, second half for the Thunder, 32 points. That was just going to continue to be the case. This team does not struggle to get to the rim. Points off turnovers, that's another thing that really stood out and not really surprising when you're watching a Thunder game. OKC, 31 points off of turnovers to the Timberwolves 10 points off of those OKC turnovers. OKC had 12 turnovers in the game. Timberwolves had 17. And look, man, if you're not going to protect the ball against the Thunder, you're not going to win the game. I mean, it's that simple. OKC shot the ball well from three, but they didn't shoot many threes, and I'll get into that as well right now. So, eye-popping stat, right? Like, here's another one. 61.4% of the Timberwolves' field goal attempts came from threes. That was 51 three-pointers attempted. Just flat out unacceptable. And if you're Chris Finch, I'm sure he's addressing that, right? Like I mentioned earlier, without getting into that paint. Definitely not the way you want to approach some elite perimeter defense, right? Like, you sustain it when Randall's shooting the way he's shooting, but that's not a sustainable approach to the game when you're playing against just such great defense throughout the course of a game, right? The physicality of the Thunder, their ability to just get under your skin and, collectively just put hands everywhere like I've talked about all season long. OKC, 25.6% of their field goal attempts were threes. These guys are not going to chuck a bunch of threes, right? Like I said, they're not going to succumb to that. These guys are going to get good looks, even if it means only shooting 20-something threes, and they're going to win games like that because they do what they're comfortable doing. They do what they're good at. They don't worry about forcing things and doing the things they're not good at, right? Like, the guys know what their roles are on this team. And I expect the same from the Timberwolves. A lot of those guys know their roles. There's plenty of veterans on the Timberwolves. So, this isn't some kind of biased pod that I'm saying that one team has guys that know what they're doing and the other doesn't. Clearly, both of these teams are in the conference finals for a reason, and they've been really good, all regular season long. Obviously, the Timberwolves changing kind of the course of their season, right? Getting things together in the second half and figuring things out. Proving me wrong. I didn't think they'd be here at this point in the postseason. And I want to give some shout outs, right? Shout out to Julius Randle, who I already mentioned earlier. Just incredible shooting night. I'm thinking, all right, well, if all his attempts are coming from the perimeter, if you're OKC, you probably live with it, right? I mean, this guy is very skilled. He's, like I mentioned a while back or a pod ago, Randall was shooting it incredibly well during the second half of the season and in the first round of the playoffs. So, you're fair in believing whether or not he's going to come back to earth, but you're also being fair if you believe he's going to shoot it well because he's proved it this season that he can do either. Shout out to Jaden McDaniels with that first start to the first quarter. This guy, I'm pretty sure he scored like the first 5 points. And, when I saw that, he hits a 3, he hits like a pull-up 2, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be a awesome game, and it's going to be a really long one for the Thunder if this is the game that we're going to see from Jaden McDaniels, from Julius Randle. I'm thinking the Thunder are in a little bit of trouble because now, there's a lot of pressure on when you're closing out and you're worried about those shots falling versus if a guy starts off and they're not making shots, right? You're a little less concerned with the shooting. So, it was interesting to watch that kind of cool off, right? Like Jaden McDaniels did that and then pretty much vanish offensively the rest of the game. So, that was interesting to watch as well. Alex Caruso, big shout out to him. I mean, what else do you want from a guy? You want him to guard Jokic, Game 7. You want him to guard Julius Randle, right? He did a really good job in the second half. You want him to guard Naz Reid. You want him to guard Ant Edwards. Cool. No problem. I got it. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to do my best, cause some problems, make guys uncomfortable. Just an incredible role player. Incredible defensive player. Incredible vet that was added to this team that I knew was going to just take this team to the next level, and that's not even like anything surprising. I think everyone knew what Alex Caruso was bringing to the table. Another shout out also to Lou Dort, right? Another guy that does the same things, right? Case and Wallace, just in that same vein. These are 3 guys that do what you need them to do and doing it at an elite level right? Sometimes their shots are going to fall, sometimes they're not. One thing we know, they're not afraid of the moment, they're not afraid of the challenge. They will take the challenge head on, and they're going to do their best. And not just do their best, they're going to do a great job in the process. Kenrich Williams, another shout out that I want to give since I'm on that role player vein. For anyone that's not familiar with Kenrich Williams, aka Kenny Hustle, yeah, this is another serviceable player on OKC's bench. Surprise, surprise. Another guy with some positional versatility. He's hitting a pull-up 2, goes perfect from the field, right? Those 8 points. Like I said, he hits a pull-up 2, when the shot clock's kind of winding down and it looked like a rough possession for the Thunder. He hits a couple catch-and-shoot threes. He does the hustle stuff, obviously his nickname. Just incredibly serviceable player that we don't see much of. And, I'm glad some people got to see him, because as the playoffs move on and as we get to the farther rounds, more eyes are on these games and people are becoming more familiar with some of these guys on the Thunder, at least, right? And yeah, I want to get to obviously the box score stuff before I kind of wrap up this pod and give my thoughts on the rest of this. Actually, I was going to think of going to the matchup data, but I don't want to overextend this episode. So let's go through this box score and kind of, make some call outs and also give some additional shout outs to some guys that obviously showed up in this game that can't go unmentioned. Let's go to the Timberwolves side, right? Obviously, I already mentioned Julius Randle, so I'm not going to continue that. But Timberwolves kind of blow a Randle game, right? And I know that Anthony Edwards tweaked his ankle early in the game. I'm pretty comfortable in thinking that definitely threw him off a little bit. And look, man, when you're playing on a tweaked ankle or you're playing through a little bit of pain and you're playing a dog team, like just a team full of dogs and wolves, like the Thunder are on defense, they're not going to let up. And things are going to be very uncomfortable for you, whether you're healthy or not. So the second that Edwards went down, I was thinking, okay, if this is if he's going to be, playing through this pain, the Thunder are probably going to walk away with this game, because Timberwolves obviously just need this guy, especially with the way the rest of these guys are shooting. Look at these performances, man. You got Mike Conley, 1 for 5, just a no-show offensively, right? We understand he's at the later stages of his career. We can't expect too much from Conley. Naz Reid, though. This guy's been awesome all playoffs long. I'm a big fan of Naz Reid. Huge come-up story, but 1 for 11, you're better than that, dude. You can't go 1 for 11, 0 for 7 from 3. That is just flat out unacceptable, right? Dante DiVincenzo, man. Where are you, dude? All playoffs long. Where are you at? 3 for 12 from 3, 3 for 14 overall from the field. He's getting really good looks. And when he starts missing shots, you can see him overthinking when the ball reversals find him after maybe an offensive rebound, or he gets that extra swing pass and he kind of thinks twice, and maybe he thinks to pass it, does a pass fake, and then now he's off his rhythm. Now he's kind of overthinking his shooting. He's got to get back to the basics, and he's a very confident shooter. I'm a fan of Dante DiVincenzo as well. I think his shot is beautiful. I love his mechanics. I love his mentality. This guy's tough. We know everything about Dante DiVincenzo, and he's been through a lot of games. This guy's a vet. So, you expect him to play better, but his shot has really abandoned him in the postseason. So definitely look out for that. Another person that just completely vanished offensively, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. 3 for 11, 2 for 9 from 3. The Timberwolves are not going to win games when this is the production from the guys around Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, right? It's just impossible to win games like this. And it's more impossible when you're turning the ball over as much as you are as well. You guys are going to have to start taking care of the ball. And, when you're watching Randle and he's posting up and, he likes to get a feel for his defender with his back to the basket sometimes. And he's elite at playing like that. But, you can't take your time with your post ups against this Thunder team. And that's something that every team knows by now, especially Jokic in that series against the Thunder. This guy's posting up and he's having to pick his dribble up sooner. His catch points are a little farther. The crowd is everywhere. The hands are everywhere. The physicality is there. The help defense is there right away. And he knows it. And he's looking over his shoulder and he's doing these much more difficult kind of overthinking shot attempts because he knows he's being sped up. Right. And that's something that we saw with Randall, too. He had a great shooting night. But when you watch him, he's backing these guys down and they're pulling the chair on him and a help defender's showing up and they're poking the ball away. And Randall's having those crazy Randall moments, right, where he kind of just loses the ball when he's trying to get to some one-on-one action. Look for that to be a constant, right? Like Randall's got to be quicker with his decision making, and I've talked about him definitely improving that aspect of his game. So I look for him to, make better decisions. He did have 5 turnovers, right? And look, man, this is as great of a game as you're gonna get from Randall, in my opinion. Like, they may not get another performance like this. I mean, to expect Randall to drop 28 points on 9 of 13 from the field is a big ask, right? Is he capable? Yes. Do I think we'll see another one like this? No. I think we'll see a little bit, less crazy of shooting splits like this, right? I mean, 83% from 3 is pretty insane. I fully expect Edwards to approach the next game, way better. I did an Edwards pod regarding his mid-range shooting, something that the Thunder have really exposed, especially in this game 1. It's definitely a gap in his package. Like, it's something that's missing in his game. I went through the shooting percentages if you guys are interested in the regular season, last season, in the playoffs last year, in the playoffs so far this year. I went through those shooting splits, the percentages for his mid-range shooting, and it's definitely something that he needs to work on, whether it's in the offseason or whenever that dude has time to do it. Because, when he's shot chucking threes, and if they're not falling, his only other option is obviously the best thing he can do, which is get to the rim. But again, if OKC is clogging that lane and, he's having to pick up that dribble and turn around and either take a tough shot or make that pass that could lead to a turnover and fast break points the other way for the Thunder, that's when that mid-range game really comes in handy to the most elite scorers of all time. So definitely look out for that. I also don't want to end this pod without mentioning Rudy Gobert, dude. 1 for 3 from the field, 2 points, 3 rebounds. This is not, there's no time for this type of production, right? Like, I was under the impression that Gobert was gonna not dominate, right? Because the Thunder do a damn good job of putting whoever is near the rim in some serious trouble and forcing them to be a playmaker rather than a scorer. And obviously Rudy Gobert is not a scorer, nor is he really a playmaker. But when Rudy Gobert is setting screens on those high pick and rolls and the Thunder are forcing him to be a playmaker in the short roll, that's where things get a little tricky. And you can tell that the Timberwolves don't fully trust Gobert to make those passes out of the short roll. Sometimes he is super available on the short roll and they don't pass it to him. And it's almost like they just don't trust him to make the right decision. He just gets a little crazy sometimes. He loses his footing. He loses his balance. His touch is just not good. We know that. We know that his strengths are on the defensive end. But one more thing that, that I notice about Gobert too is, look, man, like, if he comes off the floor, most teams are thinking, all right, well, we're going to get to that rim. And I really liked how it looked for the Thunders, on offense, like when Gobert wasn't out there, because it's like, all right, there's less length, there's less protection at the rim. Things are looking a little more spacey for us. And all of a sudden, things are much easier to get done. So, they're going to have to figure out something with Gobert. They're going to, Chris Finch is going to have to, get in this dude's face, pick up the intensity with Gobert. He's got to lock in a little bit, because one thing the Thunder have this season they didn't have last year, and everyone knows it at this point, and that's the extra big man, right? With Isaiah Hartenstein, right? Like now you're in those pick and rolls. You could put Chet Holmgren on Rudy Gobert in that back line, or you could put Hartenstein in that back line, and then, Chet Holmgren guards a pick and roll. Maybe he misses the pass to the slip, right, where Gobert kind of just gets to that short roll, but there's Hartenstein right there. Right, he's also there forcing an extra pass, and all of a sudden, the other perimeter defenders for the Thunder are closing out right on time if they don't get to the ball before they are able to intercept it or get a deflection, right? So this is going to be an incredibly interesting series. I fully expect Game 2 to be way more competitive, and I definitely am on the lookout for the role guys to show up for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Before I end this pod, just quick shout outs, man. MVP was just announced. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, mad props to him. My MVP was Jokic, but we're not going to get into that. Incredible game from him. 31 points, 9 assists, the 3 steals. What else can you say about this dude, man? He's had an incredible year. Two-way player, team player, incredibly efficient isolation scorer. The whole 9 yards with this guy. All right, he's had an awesome year, incredibly deserving of the MVP regardless. And by the way, that makes, if I'm not mistaken, 7 straight foreign-born NBA MVPs. The world is catching up. The NBA is growing. Basketball is growing. And it's honestly in an amazing place right now. And I've never been more excited to watch games. And shout out to Chet Holmgren doing his job on both ends. I always got to give him a little shout out when he's showing up as well. I definitely want to see Chet improve at the free throw line, man. Like, come this offseason, get in the gym. Shoot a bunch of free throws. I don't trust you at the free throw line, brother. I don't. I'm sorry. He splits them often. I don't trust the free throws from Chet. I know he's a good shooter. Like, this is a guy that can definitely put together some good shooting performances, which is why I hold such a high standard with this guy. And I know it's expected of him on defense. I know that it's tiring to then have to put shots up and things like that. Like, in the middle of a game, you're at the free throw line after you're exerting all this energy. Shout out to Jalen Williams, who had an awesome game as well. He definitely showed up. The shooting from the field wasn't like, oh my God, right? It's 38.9% from the field, but he did split his threes. He did get those rebounds. He's always going to show up defensively. He's always going to make plays. 5 steals, still scored those 19 points. Him getting to the rim is a problem. He's another guy that can just get to the rim at will. And at that point, it's just up to the finishing, right? At that point, it's just him finishing the job when he gets downhill. Shout out to Isaiah Joe. I think he showed up. He rebounded really well. Those 8 rebounds, knocked down one of his 2 threes. Alex Caruso showed up and made every single one of his threes. And yeah, man, that's all I got. I think I gave everyone shout outs, and I think I called out everyone that I needed to call out. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I will catch you guys on the next one.